Welcome to March Forward, an International Women's Day podcast created by RMIT University Library. RMIT University acknowledges the people of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nation, on whose unceded lands we are creating this podcast. We also respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders past and present, and acknowledge the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia. This land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. In 1995, the World Fourth Conference on Women was held in Beijing. This culminated in the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, considered the most visionary and progressive blueprint ever created to achieve equal rights for all women, and it had unanimous support. The platform identified 12 areas of action. This included jobs, the economy, political participation, peace, the environment, ending violence against women, and more. So 2025 marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. I'm Made Matichevsky, a librarian at RMIT University, and this year, as part of International Women's Day, I invited library staff to participate in conversations and consider, what have we achieved, who has inspired us, and what do we still need to march forward for in our demand for gender equality and balancing power structures so that everybody has an equitable chance in the world.
I'm Anne Lennox and I am the Associate Director of Learning, Teaching and Research Services within the RMIT University Library. My whole working life, which is, working is a large part of your life, also my personal life, I've always been forward thinking in terms of myself as a female. My joke in my family is that we have strong female role models that kind of control what's happening, which is probably the wrong word, but we often laugh because, for instance, my aunt, she no longer does the ironing for her husband because one day he criticized the way that she ironed. So it was like, well, no, I'm not doing that anymore. That's so we've got this strong female role models in my family that have always been the leaders. In a way, I think it comes naturally to me to be a strong sort of female person in who I am. So I don't actively seek out activism. It's just, I just see myself as completely equal to everybody else in the world.
My name is Jack Dunstan. I work here at RMIT. I'm one of the associate directors in the library, and I've also always worked in female-dominated industries.
Okay, tell us who your mentor is and what impact this mentor has had on you.
Yeah, so Dr. Judith Smart is my mentor, and not in a sort of a career sort of way, but in a sort of a cultural and self-development perspective. Judith Smart was an academic here at RMIT for a long period of time. She originally studied at Monash University in the 1960s, did some secondary teaching at Sandringham Technical Colleges when we had technical colleges, and a large part of her work has been recording and making visible work undertaken by women's movements over the years, from the 1890s onwards, notably in Australia. Some of these about suffrage and women's rights, but also under a broad theme of equality as well. And the way that she was always able to socialise the progression of rights, to me, was a great way of saying it's not somebody else's job, it's everyone's job. And I thought that was a really, really helpful way of saying that we can all be involved without feeling that we're not welcome in addressing inequality in society.
My name is Ha Chi, and I am the Deputy Senior Librarian for Teaching and Research Services at RMIT Vietnam Library. So I'm so excited to join this program and share my perspectives of the International Women's Day. I feel I'm so lucky to have the opportunity to work for an international university. I can work with people from different parts of the world. I am a small manager's role and I have a team of my own, and I really think it is a valuable opportunity for me to emphasize the roles of women in the development of the country. I really want to prove that women can do more significant tasks, like becoming a leader or managing people and achieve her success.
My name is Adrienne Rodriguez. I am the coordinator of Library Concierge here at RMIT Universities. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, formerly Mexico. Currently part of the United States. There was a march here in Melbourne. It was around women's reproductive rights for some reason. I remember this because I took my daughter, who at the time was about 14, and I marched for that. I have marched mostly for a woman's right to walk at night alone in the street. I took part in numerous Take Back the Night marches when I was at uni, and then later on when I was living in Los Angeles as a young adult, and when I was living in San Francisco as a young adult. There was sadly a woman that was murdered not too far from my house in Brunswick, and there was a big march then back in 2009, and I took part in a march about that. Not necessarily for rights in terms of equality for everybody, but it was just to feel safe on our streets. I felt that was something that was horrifying, that you could not feel like you could not walk home alone, even with a group of friends, that you didn't feel safe.
I'm Danielle. I'm a Learning Services Librarian at RMIT Library. So I've been on a few marches over the years, Women's Day marches, and one that springs to mind is a Reclaim the Night march that I went on. I can't remember what year it was, but a group of friends and myself, we met in Brunswick and we walked in the Reclaim the Night march. It was an important year because there was an incident that affected a large part of the community in Melbourne and in the Brunswick area. We felt that it was very important that we show strength and that we attend the Reclaim the Night march and really sort of say enough is enough, no more violence against women, and we want to feel safe at night when we walk around the community.
Hi, I'm Wendy Ferrix. I work in the library as an information literacy librarian and have done for 15 years. I marched with other women around Australia, not just Melbourne. It was in response to violence against women because the rates have been growing. I just felt like it was a necessary thing to do to represent, be part of the group who did that, because it's an important issue, and really it shouldn't even be an issue, women's rights. We should just have them. We shouldn't still be fighting for them. I don't know why we still are.
My name is Brioni and I'm an information literacy librarian. Love being a female, passionate feminist, mother of a daughter and a son, which helps me make decisions and teaches me lessons all the time in terms of gender equality and this very topic. Last year, I attended one of the vigils in Ballarat for Samantha Murphy. My sister lives in Ballarat and knew of Samantha, so I was wanting to attend in that way. My daughter didn't come. She was a little bit younger, but my niece came as well. That was very sad.
My name is Lenny De Vries and I'm the library business partner for the College of Business and Law at RMIT. I was only about 7 or 8 years old. I grew up in the Netherlands and there were huge demonstrations going on against nuclear weapons. So my mother and father took us, and some people from my village. They organized a bus and we went to, I think it was in The Hague or Amsterdam, and we marched with hundreds and thousands of Dutch people. It was really enormous. Me and my best friend at the time, we'd made a banner that said something like, "What about our future?"
My name is Jessie de Blasi, and I am the library business partner for the College of Vocational Education and for RMIT UP, specifically foundation studies. I've been to many Invasion Day protests and marches to support environmental change. And then in recent times, I think we got to 70 weekly protests to support folks in Gaza. In the public sphere, getting out and being counted amongst people that are standing up for injustices across all sorts of things. Some of the background for the March Forward for International Women's Day, we're really counted amongst the folks that are disproportionately impacted. So I think it's important to stand up. I guess outside of my library practice and my day-to-day job, I'm a photographer. And there is one particular protest I went to that was Kids for Climate Action. So I went along in solidarity and support, going down Swanston Street and feeling an immense overwhelm of emotion for how powerful and peaceful and determined this group of, the next generation essentially were in coming together to stand up to saying we want someone to hear us and to think about us and to think about our future.
Speaking of the international women, I think there's been that kind of stories around the world where women are suffering a lot of traumas, a lot of pressures in their lives because they are women. I believe there are a lot of things we need to do for the well-being and the happiness of women around the world. The International Forum is one of the good initiatives for women to gather, to meet the other people from around the world, and also they can discuss and they can also share their stories, talk about how they can improve their lives and also the other women's life in this world.
The reality is many women, myself and many of my friends, are either have chosen to work part-time for a good chunk to look after their own family or aging parents or whatever it is. And the super difference is huge. Yeah. And I've hit a point where I'm actively working on that myself. And I talk to, again, it goes back to my daughter. I do think about that so much. And one of the biggest things I tell her, it's about being able to support yourself, think about that superannuation. It's really practical things, but they're always forefront of my mind, and particularly at this time in my life. And I have many conversations with my female friends. I had one just yesterday on the doorstep when she dropped off her daughter, and we were just talking about division of labour at home and the unpaid work that we do, and never discounting that as really valuable as well. I know it's households divide things all sorts of ways, and some are more traditional than others, but that division of unpaid work at home, I'd love that to be fixed. I'd love that to be recognised. I just want some kudos for it too, actually. And she said to me, well, I don't see myself in your executive structure. And I was like flabbergasted because, I'm an inclusion diversity champion. I sort of felt, what? Why don't you, what's wrong? Why don't you see yourself there? But what she couldn't see was she couldn't see her culture and herself represented there. And that was a really big eye-opener for me. And so, I sort of marched back to the leadership team like, but we've got a problem, where we don't have diversity. Mm. And I had been looking at it from a very, very different lens. I'd been looking at it from the female lens, not the female diversity lens.
The intersectional.
Exactly.
Lens. Yeah.
Exactly. That got me thinking.
Today I've become really an advocate for disability rights, and I'm kind of quite active and passionate about creating a community around those who live with disabilities. And I don't think I would have had that strength had I not been on that march when I was that young. What it provided me is that my parents took me there. So they were a role model in terms of we need to speak out against this very important issue, and behavior was instilled in me that to stand up for your rights and what you believe in is important, is part of life, but also is empowering. And then for me as a kid to sort of go, oh my God, we're on the front page of a newspaper. It gives that feedback too of I do have impact.
It's also very, very, very complicated and interrelated, and it's intersectional on so many different levels. I have a trans child, non-binary. They call themselves trans. We have legislation to prevent discrimination, but maybe this is just a cultural thing that has to happen to where it actually has more teeth, because I do fear for my child's safety.
I have a trans daughter. Certainly, I think the violence extends to gender, transgender, as well as other genders. When I think about International Women's Day, I do consider it to be thinking about gender more broadly and thinking about which genders are the most impacted by the violence and by the disadvantages as well. So you can definitely identify if it's not heteronormative, if it's not, there are a whole heap of other intersectional areas that I feel are linked with women as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we need to do is maybe look at women role modelling for children, for boys and girls, what they want society to be in the future. Seeing both partners take on equal responsibility in the household and for the childcare and for the importance of their jobs, all of those things is something that kids need to see so they understand that men are not more important than women. Men's jobs are not more important than women. Men can actually look after kids just as well as women can. That's maybe at the core of it, putting the the women's lens on top of a lot of those issues that may not appear to be women's issues. I think women are better at that. And if they're in positions of power, then we're able to do that.
I hope for equality. I hope to end violence against women. I mean, we're going into a very difficult time at the moment. I watched the inauguration on Monday. Trump still has a long way to go with his understanding and his education of issues against women. I mean, he's taken down the reproductive rights website for women in America. They no longer can access that site and get information about reproductive rights and Planned Parenthood. That tells me that we're in for a bit of an issue if that trickles down to Australia and any of our communities here, that prejudice. So that's something to be concerned about and something for us to continue to educate people on and march forward on.
We have to fight so much for our own rights and our own sense of safety when it's the other side that is perpetrating it, the injustice and the violence, and for other men to stand up and do their bit for our safety and our rights is fantastic. It's time for that. We see this more as this is a society issue and we all need to have a part in that.
There's a long way to go everywhere. And if universities are progressive and do have a better framework built around equality, then we need to show how other industries can do it too. And once it's better in Australia, Australia can lead in its neighbours that do have a way to go forward. So there's never really a time to stop doing that work or sharing that work or showing this is how we did it and this is what we learned along the way and this is where we might have taken a misstep. Sharing the journey of, I suppose, the march is something that we can bring other people along with as well. I'm really proud to work at RMIT because we do have a lot of progressive programs and we have a lot of programs based around addressing inequality, though a lot of the time we're talking to ourselves about it. Being able to make developments in addressing inequality available to people outside our community or outside our echo chamber maybe is something that we can do to help others and say that this is a healthy, great place to work and it's because of all these things that we do.
The young folk are going to lead the way and we will have to help support them as best we can.
I see change in the younger people.
Yeah.
And whether you look at it from a perspective of even their understanding of gender compared to an older generation's needing to learn some of that understanding. So you can kind of see change in attitudes, and that's always a really good sign.
They don't see difference, I guess. It's a collective movement for good for all, which sounds really optimistic. I think those barriers are broken down more and more.